Alright, look. I'm gonna say a word that's gonna get a lot of Halo fans all worked up. Or actually, it's a phrase. Ready? Here it goes. Advanced movement. Right? This totally is a hotbed of all kinds of debate and conversation. Definitely over the last few years since Halo 5's launch, and it had sprint and ground pound and Spartan charge and dash and all these advanced movement mechanics. Everyone was like, oh my gosh, what's happening to Halo? That was actually the reaction many people had. Now, this video is not going to be a debate if advanced movement should or shouldn't be in Halo from a philosophical standpoint. No, not at all. We can do that later. What I want to do today is talk about, actually, if Halo Infinite were to move away from advanced movement, then how should the game's multiplayer feel? We're starting to see this conversation pop up more and more now with Halo Infinite on the horizon, Halo MCC getting all the love and it coming to PC, and Reach getting ready to get dropped into MCC once it goes to PC and on Xbox. People are starting to talk about, hey, how should Halo Infinite feel? And you're starting to see the debate pop up again a little bit. So I thought it'd be fun to talk about, okay, let's just say 343 decides to turn away from the advanced movement mechanics that Halo 5 brought to us and go back to a classicer feel. What should Infinite feel like? Howdy, hey folks, welcome back to the channel. As you know, it is my express desire to bring you joy in every piece of content that I create. I'm the Coltrane, and let's talk about how should Halo Infinite feel from a multiplayer standpoint if advanced movement is not present. Alright, so I will preface with saying, of course, this is my opinion. As a guy who has played lots of each Halo's multiplayer, I like to think I have a handle on how all the Halos play from a multiplayer standpoint, so my opinion will be founded upon lots of Halo played, in which Halos I thought felt the best. I'm no pro at any Halo game, not at all, but I have played a lot of Halo. Also, this will be about movement specifically. Won't be talking about weapons or any other component of the game specifically today. I should probably do that at some point since clearly they are a huge part of gameplay, but today's only going to be about movement. I should also clearly state at the beginning that I believe Halo 5 is the pinnacle Halo multiplayer experience. I think the advanced movement that 343 brought to Halo 5 certainly add to the overall Halo experience. There are some things I don't quite agree with, but overall, it is my favorite Halo to play. I like it a lot, so before anybody accuses me of loving advanced movement and not respecting traditional Halo, I'll accuse myself. I do think it's the best Halo, personally, from a multiplayer standpoint, so we'll get that out of the way at the start. In fact, the only items I would like to see pulled out of Halo 5 would be Spartan Charge and maybe Ground Pound. But let me also say that I don't think Halo should necessarily add any new types of advanced movement either. I wouldn't advocate to see Halo become something like a Titanfall. I think what H5 has now, for the most part, is just right. Alright, so let's dive into it. If Halo Infinite moves away from advanced movement mechanics, then I think Halo 2 Anniversary should be the foundational gameplay experience that 343 builds upon in its multiplayer arenas. H2A has the perfect blend of feeling like you move quickly, coupled with a real snappiness or strong feel of immediate responsiveness to how your movement feels that is also very fluid. As you play H2A and move across the terrain of any map, you will find yourself traversing exactly as you want at the rate of speed you feel like you should be going in a faster-paced arena shooter. This sort of responsiveness makes you feel in control and confident as you play. This minimizes frustration over any ill-fated play that the player feels like as a result of a poor game responsiveness or lack of fluid movement control. For Halo to feel and be competitive, or any shooter really for that matter, the player needs to rarely feel like they died or misplayed as a result of some cumbersome component of control of movement. Now, to use an example of a Halo game that I felt doesn't quite nail this blend of feeling like you move quickly coupled with a real snappiness or strong feel of immediate responsiveness, would be Halo 3. While beloved by many, it was never my personal favorite feeling Halo multiplayer. I don't dislike it or even dislike playing it, but I never quite feel as in complete control of my Spartan or ever as quick as I do in the other Halo titles. And I think for myself, it's because I don't get the same snappy feeling as I do in other Halo titles. Now, I say this here so that you can have some frame of reference for comparison if it's helpful to you. My goal isn't to debate if Halo 3 is good or not or anything of the sort. I just want to give a frame of reference for us to kind of think about in our mind's eye as we progress through this conversation. In Halo 2 Anniversary, character speed actually feels fast enough to get where you want to go in the quick manner you would like to as the player. Now, I don't know if character movement is actually faster or maybe even slower compared to other Halo titles, but this variation of Halo multiplayer feels like you move very quickly. And that is what's actually most important, what the end user feels as they play. Halo has always been at least a moderately fast-feeling arena shooter experience. The exception, again, as I said earlier, to me, Halo 3. You could also make an argument for Halo Reach's beta. That was pretty slow if my mind recollects. I think actually Bungie definitely increased the player movement speed after the beta, as that was a big piece of feedback they were given. But if advanced movement is absent from Halo Infinite, then the need to feel fast has to be present. Now, as I said earlier, this is the reason I never loved Halo 3. I just personally felt like I was slow and sluggish in the game. Now, I can't really say confidently if you're actually slower in that game compared to others. I just don't know. But the fact that you felt slow was a problem for gameplay. You need to feel fast in Halo. This is especially true if things like Spartan Dash and Clamber are actually removed. I could argue for Halo Infinite that left these two components of advanced movement in and took away Sprint, that we would still have a very fast feeling game, even if base player movement didn't feel as fast or even was the same speed as it is now in H2A or even Halo 5 when not sprinting. However, if these two mechanics of movement plus sprint were to go, then base player movement has to be fast, or at the very least, give the feeling of being fast, because that's the only way players are going to move across the map then. If we have no sprint, no ability to dash forward or clamber up on stuff, then the player has to move quickly. It is so frustrating when you feel like you're slow or running through molasses and can't get into the action or get to a place in the map quickly because you just feel like you're slow. That has to be different. I think that's a frustrating component to feel as a player in a game. Now, I said earlier I could argue for Clamber and Spartan Dash being present, but Sprint being absent from Halo Infinite. In fact, I would go as far as to say that if Sprint is absent from Halo Infinite, then Clamber and Spartan Dash would almost be a requirement. Otherwise, the game would feel antiquated and steps taken backwards in terms of overall play with where we're coming from Halo 5. We essentially would be back to Halo 3, where jump and base movement speed were our only means of traversing a map, and I don't think that sets up well for the future of arena shooters in today's current climate or for Halo. If Dash and Clamber were present, then the player would have multiple options of traversal across a map, and then maps themselves could also retain their verticality of design like Halo 5 currently has. Now, that's something I think people are not quick to consider when talking about advanced movement in Halo. Map design and how that is so in tandem with what tools the player has at their disposal to traverse across a map. You see, the ability of a player to traverse a space has to be well defined for maps to then be built for the player to traverse. If you remove mechanics like this, then the entire feel of the maps would have to change. For myself, I think Halo 5's maps are exquisitely designed and go hand in hand with the movement capabilities. I like the verticality. I think they play well. I think they give a whole lot of just interesting ways to traverse through a map and strategize, play, and allow even a skill gap to increase a little bit because it allows map knowledge to really be a factor at overall outcome of games. Now, to say that H2A or prior Halo's map designs are poor, not at all. I actually really like pretty much every game as a whole maps that have come out. There's never been one game that I can collectively say, oh, I really dislike these maps. But it would be a stark difference to revert back from both a player and a developer standpoint, and I don't think it's good for Halo's development or even for us as a player as Halo goes into the future. Now let's speak about jumping just briefly. In H2A, jumping feels snappy and responsive. I feel I get exactly where I want to go when I plan to jump. It feels forceful, it feels momentous, and I don't feel like I'm going to bounce around on surfaces or be knocked off my path unless I really collide with something hard as I'm flying through the air. Jumping has been a critical component of Halo multiplayer and combat feel, and I think jumping's tacticality and overall player movement enhancement is driven up when Clamber especially is present. You now have access to all sorts of different ledges and means of traversal if you can jump and then clamber on something. I think some really precise movement and play can be obtained in H2A or a game that felt like H2A, or really most Halos, prior to Halo 5, if something like Clamber was present. I really like the overall jump feel in H2A. It feels high, it feels far, So if Halo Infinite goes back towards more classic movement, then I think jumping has to make sure it feels really, really snappy, and I think having clamber to couple with it would be fantastic, especially if no sprint's available. You see, if clamber and dash are present with no sprint in Halo Infinite, the player still has tactical options while progressing through a map and is able to have an experience of constant, varied pathing to and from engagements, which is furthered upon when you add in our ability to jump like we do in Halo. If clamber and sprint were present in H2A as it is right now, frankly, I think it would work really well. Now, the maps in H2A are of course reprints of Halo's 2, so that wouldn't necessarily be the same, but it could work if the maps were designed to include the player's ability to dash and clamber. This would be a bit of a happy middle ground if 343 were to try to appease both camps, those for advanced movement and those against advanced movement, especially those who really don't want sprint present. However, I don't believe 343 is in the game of trying to appease fans for the sake of it. They have clearly made the game they wanted to make in both Halos 4 and Halos 5, and while we are seeing a return to classical art style in Halo Infinite, we really can't definitively say that gameplay will follow suit until we actually see gameplay. When considering advanced movement in Halo Infinite and considering how I would like it to play if advanced movement didn't exist, these are my thoughts. I'm curious to know what you think, however. Do you like advanced movement in Halo 5, and do you wish this kind of style of gameplay will come to Halo Infinite? Or would you prefer a more experience that's akin to something like we get in Halo 2 Anniversary or previous Halos? Let me know in the comments below. Hey everyone, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, then I would ask you to consider a like and a subscription if you would like to see some more content from me. But let's not leave it there. Interacting is always the best part, so I would ask you to come interact with me in a couple of places. The first is Twitter. I tweet all the time about general life stuff as well as video games that I love playing, and would love to invite you to come interact with me there. My Twitter handle is below. Would also love to invite you to come hang out with me on stream sometime. I stream every Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday by 9 p.m. Eastern. Also would love you to come give our podcast a listen. The Fair and Balanced Play Gaming Podcast. Me and some friends talk about anything related to the gaming industry, and would love to invite you to come interact with us there. Regardless of what you choose to do, however, I hope you choose joy in your life today, and I hope you take that joy and you go give it to the next person you interact with. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.